You are reading this in a room that feels too warm right now. What I am about to show you could change the way you experience every summer for the rest of your life. For less than $5 a box fan from any hardware store positioned correctly can drop your perceived temperature by 15 degrees. The physics behind why it works have been known for centuries, but deliberately buried under the noise of a trillion-dollar air conditioning industry that profits from your discomfort. Stay until the end, because what Mennonite families in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania do with this setup during the hottest part of summer is something I have never seen documented in any modern cooling guide. Right now, nearly 2.2 billion people on Earth do not have access to air conditioning, according to a report by the International Energy Agency published in 2023. Even in the United States, millions of households skip running their air conditioners every summer simply because they cannot afford the electricity bills. The average American household spends over $2,300 per year on energy. Cooling alone accounts for roughly 12% of that total, according to the United States Energy Information Administration. That is $276 per year just to cool your home. $2,760 over a decade. $13,800 over 50 years. All of it flowing to utility companies, while a $5 box fan and the forgotten physics of airflow could cut that cost by half. During the brutal heat waves that struck Europe in 2022, over 61,000 excess deaths were recorded across the continent. Many among elderly people who had no cooling systems. In 2023, Phoenix, Arizona recorded 31 consecutive days above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Emergency rooms overflowed with heat stroke victims, many living in homes with broken or non-existent air conditioning. This is not a comfort problem anymore. It is a survival crisis accelerating every single year. What if the solution to surviving deadly heat was not a $1,000 machine bolted to your wall, but a $5 box fan and the forgotten physics of how air actually moves through a building? The secret starts with a principle so fundamental that ancient Roman architects used it to cool their villas 2,000 years ago. Yet most modern builders completely ignore it. It is called cross-ventilation, and the science behind it is breathtakingly elegant. Cross-ventilation occurs when air enters a building through an opening on one side and exits through an opening on the opposite side, creating a continuous flow of air through the interior space. This is not just a breeze passing through your house. When the geometry is correct, the moving air creates a pressure differential that actually accelerates airflow beyond the ambient wind speed outside. The Bernoulli principle, named after the Swiss mathematician Daniel Bernoulli, who published it in 1738, explains that as air speeds up through a constricted space, its pressure drops. That pressure drop pulls even more air through the opening. Your room becomes a wind tunnel. The wind tunnel effect can amplify airflow speed by 30 to 50%, compared to simply opening one window alone, according to research published by the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers. Moving air does not actually change the temperature of the room in a traditional thermodynamic sense. What moving air does is dramatically increase the rate of evaporative cooling on your skin, which is the primary way your body regulates temperature. When air moves across your skin at even a gentle 1 to 2 miles per hour, your perceived temperature drops by approximately 3 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit because the moving air accelerates evaporation of sweat from your skin, surface. At 3 to 4 miles per hour of airflow, easily achievable with a basic box fan and proper window placement, the perceived temperature drop can reach 7 to 10 degrees. And when you combine this with what building scientists call thermal mass flushing, the actual measurable air temperature inside the room can drop by 15 degrees or more. Thermal mass is the ability of a material to absorb, store, and later release heat energy. Every room you have ever been in is filled with thermal mass. Your furniture, even your books. All of these objects absorb heat during the day like a sponge absorbs water. During a hot afternoon, thermal mass in a typical room stores enormous heat energy. That stored heat continues radiating back into the room even after outside air temperature drops in the evening. This is why your room still feels hot at 9 p.m. Even when outside temperature has fallen by 10 or 15 degrees. The walls and floors slowly release all the heat they absorb during the day. Thermal mass flushing is the technique of using forced airflow like a box fan to push cooler evening or nighttime air across these heat-storing surfaces, stripping the stored heat out and exhausting it outside. A study conducted at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory demonstrated that nighttime ventilation combined with thermal mass can reduce peak indoor temperatures by 9 to nearly 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Effectiveness depends on 3 variables: the temperature difference between indoor and outdoor air, the airflow rate through the space, and the amount of exposed thermal mass in the room. While universities were documenting these results, Mennonite families in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania were living them. I visited a farmhouse outside Intercourse in July of 2019, built in 1903. No air conditioning, no ceiling fans. Just original wood frame windows and thick limestone walls. The kind of house modern builders would say is uninhabitable without mechanical cooling. The outdoor temperature that afternoon was 94 degrees Fahrenheit. The indoor temperature in the main room was 79 degrees, 15 degrees cooler. Comfortable enough to work without sweating. The family who lives there, a Mennonite couple in their 50s, showed me their system. Every window in the house faced either east or west. At sunrise, they opened every east-facing window. Cool morning air flooded through. By 10 a.m., when sun began heating the east side, they closed those windows and opened west-facing windows, creating airflow from the shaded side. At 8 p.m., after sunset, they placed a 20-inch box fan in the west window of the main room blowing outward. They opened the east windows fully. The fan created negative pressure that pulled evening air through the entire house. That air passed over stone floors and thick plaster walls, stripping stored heat and exhausting it outside. The man told me his grandfather installed the first box fan in 1952 after reading about forced ventilation in a farming journal. Before that, they relied entirely on natural cross breeze. The addition of the fan, he said, dropped nighttime temperatures by an additional 8 to 10 degrees compared to passive ventilation alone. He walked me to the basement. The floor was bare limestone. The walls were fieldstone 18 inches thick. He placed my hand on the stone wall. It was cool to the touch even after a 94-degree day. He said thermal mass in the basement stays cool because it never receives direct sunlight, and nighttime flushing pulls heat out faster than the day can put it back in. That cool basement acts as a thermal battery, cooling the air in rooms above. I measured the basement temperature with a digital thermometer. 68 degrees, 26 degrees cooler than outdoor air, all from stone airflow and a $5 fan. Now here is where the story takes the turn that the air conditioning industry is counting on you never hearing. Before 1950, the vast majority of buildings in the United States were designed with cross-ventilation as a primary cooling strategy. Architects carefully oriented buildings to capture prevailing summer breezes, placed windows on opposite walls, designed transom windows above interior doors to allow airflow between rooms, used deep overhangs to shade windows from direct sun while still allowing airflow. The shotgun houses of New Orleans, the dog trot houses of the American South, the courtyard homes of the Middle East, the wind catchers of ancient Persia, all were engineered around the exact same physics of cross-ventilation and thermal mass. Then, in 1902, Willis Carrier invented the modern air conditioner. By the mid-20th century, the air conditioning industry began one of the most successful marketing campaigns in history. Builders realized that if they sealed buildings and installed air conditioning, they could construct homes faster, cheaper, without worrying about window placement orientation or airflow design. The suppression was not dramatic. It was systematic and quiet. They did not ban cross-ventilation. They simply stopped mentioning it. Within a few decades, the entire architectural tradition of climate-responsive design was abandoned in favor of sealed boxes with mechanical cooling. A paper published in the journal Energy and Buildings in 2018 documented how the average number of operable windows in American homes declined by over 40% between 1960 and 2010. Modern tract homes are often built with windows that do not open on opposite walls, hallways that block airflow, floor plans that make cross-ventilation geometrically impossible. Air conditioning currently accounts for roughly 10% of all global electricity consumption, according to the International Energy Agency. The refrigerants used in air conditioning units are potent greenhouse gases, some with global warming potential thousands of times greater than carbon dioxide. Today, the global air conditioning market generates over $240 billion annually. Window units cost $150 to $600. Central air systems $3,000 to $8,000 installed. Every one requires ongoing electricity costs that run $200 to $400 per summer. A standard box fan uses a fundamentally different approach. It does not fight thermodynamics, it works with it. Moving air across your skin accelerates evaporative cooling. Moving air through your house strips heat from thermal mass. Moving air from outside to inside when outdoor temperature is lower is free cooling with zero thermodynamic penalty. A box fan consumes approximately 50 to 100 watts of electricity. A window air conditioning unit consumes 500 to 1500 watts. The box fan cross-ventilation approach uses 1/10 to 1/20th of the electricity. Over an entire summer, that translates to hundreds of dollars in savings. If you have made it this far, you already know more about passive cooling than 99% of homeowners. But stay with me, because what comes next is the part they really do not want you to hear. I need to be honest with you. Cross-ventilation is not perfect. It has two real limitations. First, it only works when outdoor temperature is lower than indoor temperature. If it is 100 degrees outside and 95 inside, opening windows will make things worse. This technique is most effective in climates with significant day-night temperature swings of 15 degrees or more. Second, cross-ventilation works best in buildings with operable windows on opposite walls. If your home was built after 1980, your floor plan may make true cross-ventilation difficult without modifications. Now, here is what cross-ventilation does better than any air conditioning system. It costs 98% less, requires zero refrigerants, improves indoor air quality by replacing stale air with fresh outdoor air, and reduces your carbon footprint to nearly zero. Here is the exact process. Go to any hardware store and buy a 20-inch box fan. This costs between $4 and $15 depending on brand. Wait until outside temperature drops below indoor temperature. In most climates, this happens between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. during summer. Step 1. Open a window on the side of your home facing the prevailing breeze. Or, if you do not know prevailing breeze direction, open a window on the shadier side. Step 2. On the opposite side of the home, or as far away as possible, place your box fan in a window blowing outward, pushing air from inside to outside. This is critical. Blowing outward creates negative pressure that pulls air evenly through the entire room. Blowing inward creates a narrow jet that leaves hot air stagnant in corners. Step 3. Make sure interior doors between intake window and exhaust fan are open so air can flow freely through the entire path. Step 4. Leave the system running through the night. By morning, your thermal mass will be flushed of stored heat, starting the day at a much lower baseline temperature. Step 5. Close all windows and blinds before the sun rises and outside temperature begins climbing. Trap that cool thermal mass inside your sealed home like a cold battery. This strategy, called pre-cooling, can delay the need for air conditioning by 4 to 6 hours. A retired engineer in Leola, Pennsylvania, applied this exact system to his 1,978 ranch house in summer 2021. He documented indoor and outdoor temperatures and electricity costs for 3 months. June through August before modification, his air conditioning electricity cost was $412. After implementing nighttime cross-ventilation with a single box fan, his cost dropped to $163. $249 saved in one summer. The fan cost $9. Research from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory confirmed that exhaust configuration, meaning the fan blows outward, produces 20 to 40% more total air exchange than intake configuration. When a fan blows inward, it creates a turbulent cone of air that disperses quickly. When the fan blows outward, the entire room experiences consistent negative pressure that draws air through every gap, flushing heat evenly. The ancient Egyptians understood airflow so well that the great houses of Amarna, built over 3,000 years ago, had rooms designed with high and low openings to create stack-driven ventilation that kept interiors cool in Saharan heat. The Persians built wind towers called badgurs as early as the 4th century that could cool entire underground water reservoirs using nothing but physics of convection and evaporation. The Mughals designed the palace at Fatehpur Sikri in India with interconnected courtyards and water channels that created cross-ventilation patterns capable of dropping air temperatures by 20 degrees before air reached occupied rooms. All of these civilizations understood something the modern world spent a century forgetting. Cooling a space does not require compressing chemicals through copper tubes. It requires understanding how air wants to move and then helping it do so. Every hot night you ever spent sweating in your bedroom was not because the air outside was too warm. It was because the air inside had nowhere to go. Every $300 electricity bill you opened in August was not just the cost of summer. It was the cost of forgetting that a $5 fan positioned correctly can move more air through your house than any air conditioner. Now you know. Tell me in the comments which room you are cooling first. Hit subscribe, because the knowledge was never lost. It was just waiting for someone to remember.